Good morning. Tom, you want to lead us in the pledge?
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning.
Mayor, Benefield, Brooks.
Here.
Freitag. Here. Brizalone. Here. Poole. Here. Hart. Moran. O'Gala. Weigel. Here. And Eustace.
Here. Okay, we have there's no minutes to approve today? Okay. First item under old business, authorizing lease agreement with the Village of Monee for Branch Court. This was tabled, so I'll entertain a motion to untable. Move. Second, all in favor? Aye. It's off the table. They're still not ready. I'll entertain a motion to remove this from the agenda.
Second.
Okay. Motion second. Yes?
Can it just be an abstention on both those?
All in favor? Aye. And there's an abstention. Okay. Is there any other old business to bring forward today? Okay. Under new business, authorizing lease agreements to the ESTB Administrative Office at the new Laraway Public Safety Facility. Nick, are you there, or Dave? Okay, well, on this, we are working on a lease with ESTB for the Laraway. I think we have a agreement in principle, but it still has to go to ESTB for their approval, their board for approval. Our state's attorney has to approve all the details of the lease. So I would, and we will not bring this forward until we have an agreement. The basic terms are in place. So I'm going to entertain a motion to place this on the county board agenda. And if it's not ready, it's not approved, we'll just pull it there. Okay, so can I have that motion? Motion, second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. This is number 2, authorizing a memorandum of understanding with, for the Humboldt Road Bridge project. We have motion, second. All in favor?
Question.
Yes.
Question.
Did we? Oh, Bruce, as long as you're here, were we going to pull this for some
Yes, we
reason?
were. Mary, we never received the final copy, did we? The version? No.
Okay, well then.
Question.
Pull that.
Okay, then then I'll forget that motion. Maybe everybody rescinded their motion in the second, correct? Okay, so,
Don's got it.
Could I ask a question?
yes, sure.
It said here that there's an attachment, and it's my mistake, but I don't see an attachment. Is there
Well,
an
that's
attachment?
because there was no agreement.
So that is, the attachment is the
The
agreement?
yes.
Okay, because I didn't receive it, and that's why I'm asking, so.
Okay,
All
so
right.
I'll entertain a
'Cause it
motion.
says
then
there's
to
an attachment, and there isn't.
I'll make a motion to remove this from the agenda. Motion, second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next, we have amending the boundaries of the Will Cook Enterprise Zone. Mr. Paddock?
Members of the committee, you may recall a little over a year ago, the county entered into an intergovernmental agreement to establish the Will Cook Enterprise Zone, which takes in a portion of far eastern Will County, and it's primarily in Cook County. As enterprise zones do, they occasionally adjust their boundaries. The ordinance that's before you that each member or party to the intergovernmental agreement is asked to sign is a proposal making slight modification in the existing boundaries of that enterprise zone. This would be to take in the Applewood Nursing Home Facility, which is planning an expansion of a fairly substantial capital investment and introduction of some additional jobs within Madison. So it doesn't directly affect Will County, but since we're a party to the agreement, we're asked to approve the boundary change.
Okay, so someone like to make that motion? Moved? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a word of bid for for sale for surplus vehicles. Move. Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Proclamations. Herb?
The only one I'm aware of, the one for Don, for your district. I have an Eagle Scout. The Eagle Scout.
Well, we have,
That's it?
we,
Oh, I didn't see that.
I have 2 Eagle Scouts in my district, but neither one is coming, so we'll read it from the,
Okay.
Eagle Scouts coming forward, one will be presented at the podium, two will be read into the record. We have Reed Huster coming for their state championship, we have Providence coming for their state championship, and then the answer order and Sanford will be read into the record as well. So we'll have 3 at the podium and 3. We have
well, we didn't have any last month, remember, we didn't, because we wanted to move that meeting along.
Okay, do we know who's doing it? Are you doing New Lenox Town?
Ray had
Ray?
asked for that.
Okay.
Don Gould will read his, Reagan asked for Reed
Corey,
Huster.
Corey will do the Eagle Scouts for District 2. He can do both, yeah.
Both of those into the record, and then do you want to read?
Okay, I'll do the will.
Okay?
Will do? We're done?
All right. Yes, sir. He's late. I don't know. I'm only kidding, Nick. Fine. Nick's going to give us a real brief. Nick's going to give us a briefing on the lease with the STB board.
Sorry.
It's
Sorry, I was
okay.
late. I know you already moved it to the board agenda, so I don't
Yeah.
want to screw that up. But as they say, a good compromise, no one's happy, so I think we've achieved that. At the ETSB board meetings yesterday, they were trying to tell me that they're paying too much, which I feel like maybe they're not paying enough, but I think it's a good deal. I actually can hand out, if you want, or I can attach it, have it attached to the agenda.
Yeah, why don't you hand them out? and
Just
maybe
because
you
this
can
will give
tell us
you
what's
something
in
to
it.
look at. So, at the Capital Committee, we talked, and I can talk about it in public because hopefully this is the deal. We talked about a 10 or 15-year
Well,
lease.
Before you go on, so this is what they agreed to?
They approved and moved it to the full board. We have to, but I expect it to go. The only issue is their attorney and state's attorney has to finalize some of
Attorneys.
the legal, and it's not, I don't think there's gonna be any problems.
You
I think
don't
it's a
think
pretty
so?
straightforward
Okay.
lease. It's just finalizing some language on hold harmless and some other standard language that we use that wasn't in the lease. So I'm comfortable talking about the terms because
Okay.
we've talked about it at their committee too, so.
Okay.
So at our committee, those of you who were at Capitol, we talked about a 10 or 15-year lease. I was probably promoting more of a 10-year lease, but when we went back and talked to them, we negotiated to a 15-year lease, which was agreeable, I think, and hopefully you'll see why. The thing, I guess, before I get into the particulars, our goal, I think, as a county was to recover our capital costs, which is estimated to be $2.7 million, pay for some, the operational costs, which we're including in the rent payment, and giving some consideration to the cost of money, because I know I've heard you say that before, about giving people rent-free or interest-free is not, there's a cost to that, and so we're not capturing probably all of that, but we're capturing a portion of that. So when you look at this reflects that, and I'll explain why as I go through. So 15-year lease, the first 3 years, we're holding them at $160,000. Then at year 4 and 5, we do 2% increases, and then from year 6 through 15, we're doing 1.5% increases. We think that's a fair number, and when you add that all up, for a 15-year total, that's $2.6 million over those 15 years. And as you'll see on this chart, I didn't figure any increase for 16 to 20 because we're going to renegotiate that if they exercise their extension. And at that point, we'll have 15 years of history to use as our base. If we're charging them too much, we can see what we want to do. If we're not charging them enough, we'll up to whatever the appropriate level is, and we'll negotiate at that point. But I just put in as a placeholder for 16 through 20 the amount we'd be at it for year 15, just to extrapolate out a 20-year total, and that would get us to 3.6 approximately million. If you the numbers below, I did the math for you, is if you take out the 2.7, that gives us 884,000 for that 20-year total, and that averages to about 44,000 a year. That's above what we expect, although we don't know utility costs. So their utility costs now, they pay taxes, utilities, and some other fees. is probably less than 15,000. So if we're collecting 44,000 or so, that, any of that extra money is paying for the cost of the, we're not charging them interest per se, but that's just rolled up in that 44,000. So we think that's a fair amount. And one concept that we don't have to act on today, but maybe going forward, and Mr. Mustis and I talked about this, is possibly taking that money and putting that into a fund so that it's kind of like a building fund for future costs of replacement of mechanicals and things like that. So we have money set aside. I think that's a good business practice. And this would just be for the ETSB. We can figure out what number is appropriate for the entire facility, but that way, in 20 years, we have a pot of money to pay for a new HVAC unit or some other roofing or whatever. So that's something to be considered another day, but we just thought that would be a good idea. The other important thing, I guess, to note is in going back and negotiating to 15 years, we agreed with the ETSB that they're going to pay the entire amount up front, so that December 1st is the target date. They would pay us the entire amount for the year rather than in monthly installments. So we'll get all our money up front, which I think is a positive for us, too. One, it just, we don't have to deal with collecting month after month.
Cost of the money goes down a little
But,
bit.
yeah, so, but we'll get it, so, and then we can do what we want with it,
Okay,
so.
is there any questions for Nick?
Just on the 15 to 20 year, is that at their discretion, the option?
They can I mean,
They can exercise the
they can exercise the option.
We don't have any,
That's always the way leases
But
are.
the lease
It's
is going to be
always- it's
written as a
really for the
20-year framework.
tenants, it's not
And
for
I,
the landlord.
and I expressed to them, there was some concern by our county board that commitment or not commitment, and I mean, there's going to be different staff probably in 15 years, but they said there is no plan to go anywhere else. But I think 15 years, we're collecting the bulk of our capital cost, and in 30 years, we definitely cover our capital cost plus the operations, so I think it's a good deal, so.
Yeah. Anyway, since Nick mentioned it, I do think a policy of reserving for maintenance, primarily for replacement of mechanical, is a good practice. I'd like to see us at least start on this building. I'd like to see us do it on the courthouse also. I'd like to see us do it, period, for all our buildings, even if it's not a large amount. I mean, even if you threw a couple $100,000 a year into a overall maintenance reserve fund, it's just really a good practice. And that way when things need to be replaced, you can replace them.
Yep.
So we should probably even potentially talk about that as we go into the budget. Do we maybe establish such a fund? And like I say,
Category within the capital?
well, I'm thinking we could, yes.
We can just do a special.
And then, like I say, you can put $100,000 a year in there, put something in there. I mean,
So mechanical maintenance reserve?
I would just say maintenance reserve, and it's basically not for maintenance operation, it's for capital maintenance items. So,
Is Rashawn on there? I'm here. Okay.
She's right.
and you know what I think we'll do is, I'm gonna put that over to finance for, so we have maybe a little, because we're just kind of bringing it up now, and it's not on our agenda. So I think I'll entertain a motion to move that item to finance.
So moved.
Motion, have a second. All in favor? Aye. And that way we can have a full discussion, and that gives Rashana time to see where it best fits, so you can just, but it would be an item that would basically be for capital maintenance expenditures. It's a reserve that we don't touch, and hopefully you build up, and then when you need to replace, a $500,000 air conditioning system or a $2 million air conditioning system, you have some resources to do that. So, and we're all about good practices, and then we'll get another data boy from the auditors. All right, yeah, Well, next time they read us, they'll go, hey, these guys are really on top. AAA, that's right, Nick. So, okay, is there any questions for Nick? Okay, thank you. And we're into committee reports, land use. Mr. Wago?
Appointments.
Oop.
County.
Appointments by the county executive.
So moved.
Move, second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Then we have okay, now we're into, is there any other new business to report today? Okay, then we'll get into committee reports. Tom?
Got 2 zoning cases.
And there's one resolution on eco housing that we discussed, and it's not on our draft agenda, so we need to add it to the agenda. We discussed eco housing, making it a special use permit, but the committee voted it down, so it goes before the county board with a recommendation not to change it to special use permit, just leave it the way it is now, by right, for eco housing.
Okay, any questions for Tom?
Need a motion to add that to the agenda.
Make a motion to add that to the agenda.
Okay, motion second.
Committee's reasoning.
Infringing on property rights.
It was the expense, extra
Infringing on
expense.
property rights.
Ex-
I disagree with it personally. I wasn't at the last
No, I
meeting,
just
but
want Tom to explain it.
The committee members expressed a lot about the extra expense for the person. It'd be about $1,000 for a special use permit, publications and signage and what have you. And they didn't feel, we've had like 18 in the last 5 or 10 years, so it's not a big thing that happens.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah. I'm one of these people that think that surrounding property owners should be given notice and have some say. But
I mean,
the committee didn't
because
feel that way.
Anything really also affects the property rights of the neighboring people, parcels. So.
well, they have
And
to,
if it's by right, then.
they have to comply with our building code. They have to have setbacks, it has to be certain distance from the neighboring houses and things like that. So we have regulations in place.
Well, there's a lot of those kind of lots in certain areas that this would apply to. Homer Township, Frankfurt Township, that are basically rural residential, and I have quite a bit of it in my district already, and it's been done by special use, and the neighbors get together, and they work it out, and they understand it. But eco housing also, the monitoring of eco housing and the purpose of eco housing is supposed to be temporary in nature, and I can tell you it's not temporary. It winds up to be very permanent. I think this goes way beyond that. You have maybe an elderly relative who needs some additional care that that you feel you want to, that's why they need to be there. It's really based for somebody who's a family member who is ill that you're helping take care of. And this whole thing about there's a little extra cost added, or they can't do it immediately. It can be a problem in a lot of areas.
Jim?
Go ahead, Judy. Yeah.
So the other discussion too was the fact that it's not just somebody who's disabled, it's somebody who is 62 or disabled. So you don't have to be disabled. And granted, somebody who's 62, if you have your mother move on your property, 62,
Well-
she lives as long as my grandma, it's going to seem like forever because she's 101. So you're right, it does. But our reasoning was that when it was special use permit, 99% of them were always approved. 99%, so why have everybody, including land
but-
use, go through that if it's always approved? They have to yearly comply with the paperwork to prove that it is. And then we felt that the additional cost at $675 just for the permit, then you have publication that, and if they have to have an attorney, their fees would go up. So that's the thing. And the case that brought this issue to this is already going to be processed through before we would even put this in place if a change were made.
Let me say that I'm not aware of any eco housing that was out for just somebody who was 62. It was always brought forward as someone who had some kind of health problem, and it was a parent or an aunt or so forth. So I never recall ever seeing eco housing that says this is just for my 62-year-old. And now that when you say that, it makes me even more opposed to not having it as a special use. So somebody who's just 62, I can dump the trailer next door, and when you say it has to meet the zoning requirements and the building requirements, well, that's any trailer, camper type You know, I mean, now, I'm not putting that down, but I mean, they're all basically HUD approved, or government approved. I don't know if it's HUD approved, but whatever the approval process is, they're all approved. You know, I mean, and I watched the Little House thing on TV. I can, we have all the little houses sitting in the yards. I mean, so this idea of you just have to be 62. And even that, I question the age of 62. Maybe it should be 72. You know, I mean, 62
Well, then,
is not
yeah,
that
then
old.
you have to look at the ordinance, because the ordinance as
But-
it's written, you're 62 or.
So I'm going to favor the special use, and I think that's a more appropriate way to keep, if you're bringing in this kind of housing and you're saying, $1,000, say, overall, is way too much. I disagree. Because look at all the, that's like saying, why do we charge for building permits? It's all too much.
No, it's it's just the additional
know.
cost, and there's additional time that is
I
required to go
understand.
through the process.
So
And I think it is a situational thing, that you might have a situation where your 62-year-old parent who was left from the death of somebody, and you do want to move them into the area so they're close by, because maybe they don't drive. There's lots of circumstances that could play into it. There's only 18 countywide, so that's not a lot. It's not like it's an abused thing.
But it doesn't mean that you're not setting up a situation for the proliferation of these types of this type of housing.
Okay.
Especially when you say it's just 62 is the only requirement. So, well, and the idea that neighbors should not be aware of how they're going to be affected, and the expense you may put on them, or the diminishing of their property value, So anyway, I will get to you there. Did you want to say something else, Don?
I just wanted to say that, those 18 that are existing now, sure, the county board voted on it, and we had a say in that. And
Yeah.
when the ordinance was changed and it was put in the hands of the PZC, it basically divorces the county board members from their constituents. So your constituents are objecting, and yet it will never make it to the board because it'll just stop at the PZC level. So in making it a special use, Judy, it probably won't happen that often, but at least the members from that district will have an opportunity to express how they feel on it, and then the board can vote it up or down.
I'll put a little house next to Herb.
Yeah, I was one of the more vocal individuals at the committee meeting, and I'm gonna, and I understand exactly where you're coming from, Jim. But also too, I have manufactured home communities in the district out in the county, and those are individuals' homes.
Nobody has more than I have, Bob.
Yeah, I know you have a nice, very nice one out there. So anyway, with all I'm saying is that we shouldn't throw an obstacle or additional hurdle or something that's with a time-sensitive issue with these individuals that are moving in there. And it's very clear that 62 or those with a disability or something like that. Now, 2 months, adding 2 months to a process, if you have an individual, a loved one, and I'm speaking from personal experience on that, somebody in hospice, 2 months, that's a whole world. That's a whole eternity to those individuals. So again, I don't think that we should actually, as a governmental agency, sit there and say, okay, we're going to throw another hurdle up against this. But again, it's not like somebody's just moving a manufactured home out there arbitrarily with no input from everybody. They still follow all the codes and restrictions. And it's a safe process that we have to protect the individuals there living next door as far as the individual living on the property itself. So I think what we need to look at is basically this isn't used every day. This is a process that's been used sporadically over the years, and it's a very special case. And again, in our district there, you have a lot of rural in your district or whatever. Again, but you're adjacent to the homes, and they're very nice homes. And I understand that apprehension when somebody says, okay, I'm going to move a manufactured home on the property on the 10 acres next door. Okay, I understand that. But at the same time, it's almost like we're getting into a process where if you're going to paint your house yellow I should have a say in what color your house is. I disagree with that. So all
I don't see it as quite the same thing, Bob. I mean, what you're saying is that a 2-month process and $1,000 is a burden, undue burden, and I just don't agree with you.
$1,000 is a lot to me, Jim. It might not.
You know what? If you were going to go rent a place and it was going to be $1,500 a month, you got to come up with $2,000 or $2,500 for a security deposit. It's not a lot of money for housing. Let's put it. $1,000 is a lot to me too, but not for housing. It's not. I mean, I'm not going to debate this really. I understand what you're saying, but let me say, for those of you, and this includes probably your district, Bob, you don't have a lot of unincorporated population. You basically have agriculture. I, in my district, have seen this, along in other districts. There's probably no district that has more unincorporated population than mine. And some of it is subdivision, some of it is rural residential, and some of it is agriculture. And then, of course, I have municipalities. That's, and I'm saying to say that there should be no review by our board in our districts when this happens. I think is unreasonable. We should be aware of it because it does have impact, and there is people who want to give feedback. There's never one been we've always approved them, but the neighbors always were aware of it. And they had input.
In a special use permit, we added conditions on those when necessary.
And there were conditions put on, which sometimes is necessary. So, it's going to go to the board. It'll go up or down. I'll try to make my as strong an argument as I can to put it in explanation. I always let you speak. You're passionate about everything, Bob.
Being at $6,000 or $8,000 a month, that's $16,000 for a 2-month delay. So I mean, I understand that.
It doesn't have to be a
Personally,
situation.
I've seen it on a personal level. So again, but thank you for that.
There's always the what ifs of the world, right? I can always come up with a situation and say, well, what if? They're not that common of situations either. If Echo is not that unusual of a situation, those situations where people are that desperate generally or have no alternatives are not that common either, in my view. So, okay. Anything else? Tom, now that you caused this firestorm, Anything else? Any questions for Mr. Weigel? Okay.
We had the motion, did you ask if they're all in favor?
Okay, we had a motion second to put it on the agenda. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Okay. Finance, Mike?
Yes, we have committing funds for the University of Illinois property extension, transferring funds for the extension budget. We're amending the RTA budget to allow for debate of 2016 bonds. And we're signing the tax sale certificates and on the county executive to execute necessary documentation for the program. Thank you. That's it.
Okay, any questions for, yes? Yep.
Mike, on Tuesday, at the close of the day, I understand we sold $205 million of bonds.
So $175 million par value bonds, which nets us $205 million.
205.
We actually had $500 million worth of requests. They wanted it that bad. As a matter of fact, Forest Reserve of Will County missed out. They were a little late in trying to get a purchase in. We did way better than expected. We were sold out in 45 minutes. Wow. Interest anticipated at 3.75 is actually going to be 3.63. So all told, we did awesome.
Really good.
Okay. And my last question is, the check in the mail, or when do we get the money?
week.
We should see the money around the 24th.
All right.
Steve Weber's already looking that way as well.
Okay. Check in the mail. All right. Thank you.
Thanks for asking.
Any other questions for the Finance and Public Works?
We have 3 resolutions. First one, we're going to work with Will Township Road District on an oil contract. The second one is, which comes up every year, is submitting our 5-year transportation program to IDOT. And then the third one is cooperating. It's a joint agreement with IDOT for the high-speed rail. Okay, it's not costing us anything. It's $120,000 from the state.
Okay.
All right.
Any questions for to go judicial? Hey, you know what, before we move away from public works, I wanted to know that Bruce School has put in his retirement. When are you gonna be out here, March 1st?
February 28th.
Well, that's March 1st. Yeah, I mean, yeah, so we will be we will be looking to replace Bruce as the county engineer. As difficult as that'll be, Bruce, to replace you. Yeah, I'm gonna blow some smoke at you. Why not? Bruce has done a great job. He's been with the county for 40 years. 40? You got 40 years of service to Will County, and anybody gets 40 years, and we will recognize you, Bruce. We don't recognize everybody. So we'll be doing that process. I'm going to be talking with Mary. As you know, the county engineer is a county board employee, or works for the county board. I don't want to use the word employee, but works for the county board. But it's done by contract. It has to be approved by IDOT. Person has to come off the IDOT list. So it's just not like a regular other hire. It's kind of, you got to pick from a pool, and certainly our internal candidates, I think, should always be given utmost consideration. So Mary will be talking with you too about that process. So
I don't think we should let him retire. We don't want him to leave, so.
well,
Don't accept it.
let me say this. Bruce has come along, but we do have some important projects that Bruce is working on that he's not going to be here for completion. So it's very important that we, select a person who's, I think can hit the ground running. And of course, we'll be looking for Bruce's input also on his replacement. So, and we'll talk later, Mary, because you're going to have to guide us a little bit. So, okay, going on to judicial. I may have anything on judicial. Is there anything on there? I know you sent me public health and safety, Judy.
Right, we just have two things. One is amendment to the Will County Chapter 51 sewage treatment and disposal ordinance. That is basically wording changes because they review the ordinances every so many years to match with what the state has changed. And then there's some fee increases there to go up to make the fees, in a way so that we cover the cost to the county for the different services they provide. And then we also have renewing contract for nursing services at Sunny Hill. And it should be noted that Don Gould will be taking that as I will not be here.
Okay.
That's it, thanks.
Any questions for Judy? Okay. Legislative and policy? Ms. Hart? Nothing? Any questions for Suzanne? Capital improvements, Reagan?
First meeting that we already had, that was, we have the new management labor agreement, correct? That one's going forward. The good count, right? And then, as well as awarding the contract for the sheriff's facility, those are for the bid package number 1. And we have all of those ready to go.
Well, good page, no one else that was out there.
Or no.
We're putting out 2, right?
We're putting out 2, but it's the contracts with them.
The approval of the GMP and then concurrence for the recommendations of award from the construction manager for bid package number 1.
Which is not.
Well,
What?
on the concurrence on the contracts, and Mary, I'm probably going to have to look at you on this, I thought that perhaps that approval will be, the concurrence will be at the capital committee versus the full board. But does it matter?
Well, the contract indicates that the owner will award the contracts for the subcontractor and then assign them to the project manager.
Correct.
So, but in the definition of owner allows the owner's agent. And at this point, it's unclear. We brought this back from the building commission. So if you want to designate the committee as the owner's agent to make these decisions,
I'm not sure that that's, I think there needs to be some discussion, because this could involve some day-to-day decisions that need to be made quickly. So I'm not sure that.
Well, that's why I'm thinking the committee's better equipped to do that, perhaps, than the full board.
So at this point, I think it needs to go to the full board because
We
we
haven't
don't
done it.
have anyone designated as an owner's agent.
Okay, can we put that on the capital agenda? Next We'll do, can we do that, can we put that on the agenda Tuesday for discussion purposes?
I think for this round, yes.
But for this round, we have to go to the full board. I'm trying to establish how we're going to,
9:30?
Yeah, if you save a space to
Yeah.
designate committee,
okay.
hear it
Yeah.
on Tuesday
All right.
and approve it at the board.
Well, okay, I'll entertain, to make, put that, leave that as a space on the capital, or let's do it, let's leave that on an executive committee. So we'll put that on the executive committee,
To designate the capital.
designate the capital, but there'll be a discussion at capital on Tuesday, okay?
So we need-
And Mary, you can, have things prepared for us, how we would have to do that? Okay.
So what's the motion?
To save a space for a resolution designating the capital committee as the owner's agent.
As the owner's agent.
For discussion?
Yeah, that'll be on Tuesday.
Right, for Tuesday.
Okay.
I need the motion to save the space.
I so move.
Second.
Okay, motion second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Reagan, anything else?
And then we just need to save additional space for the 16th, for the board meeting, for my 16th meeting in regards to the delivery team payment schedule.
Are you making that motion?
Making that motion.
Move second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
I think
Okay.
I'm done.
This one will be under executive for designating the committee, but that one will be
Yeah.
under your.
I'm just thinking it's better that it comes to the executive committee
Just wanted
rather
to
than
make
them
sure.
anointing themselves. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for Reagan?
Hold on, Dave, did you have, I knew your hand was up and then you left. so-
No, Lee and I, this is Lee McMillan, one of the principals with Lee Apartment,
Yeah.
construction manager. We just had a side conversation.
Okay,
on
I
the
hadn't seen your
process,
hand
that's
up
all.
before you left.
Yeah,
so didn't know
I
if you
think,
had something.
I think the process will be much smoother just having the committee as the agent versus the entire board. That would be, so that's what we're gonna do, I think. Well, we're gonna bring it to the board and get concurrence on that. So, all right? Okay, executive committee, is there any questions for me? All my items are, I think, pretty straightforward. Okay, there's going to be no need for executive session today, Mary, right? Okay, thank you. I have no announcements. I will entertain it to approve the county board agenda as amended. Move second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, is there any comments by the public? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Move.
Do we have another meeting
Second,
now?
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Yeah, we're gonna have,
The other